I think we're live now. Morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I think we'll wait a couple of seconds just to make sure we get a little bit more people joining. But welcome to today's webinar. Pleased to have you join us today. So let's wait a little bit. I see we've got 8 people now. Rising and rising. Hopefully, Eben, you'll be fine with your connection. I know there's massive storm now in the south of France.
Yeah,
so
we've got a
red
alert today. Yeah, first time I've actually received that weird alert thing on my phone. It's quite startling, actually.
Yeah, it shouldn't be happening in the south of France. Anyway, I see we have a couple more people, and so we'll start sharp. Bit of a housekeeping before we start. So you will see you have a questions block on this live storm. So please ask any questions in this block. You'll be able to vote for the questions as well. So if you see something there that's pretty interesting, you'd like an answer from us, please do so. We're also going to have a bit of a couple of polls during the webinar. So please feel free to interact, give us your answers as well. And we can start, I suppose. So today, and I hope it's going to be a relief for most of you, because we're going to put aside the LinkedIn feed trend. We're not going to be spending time talking about the latest AI GEO tool or the LLM's visibility tracker, the Bing search of this world. We're not going to talk about the magic prompt that gets you to appear in AI citations. So what we're here today to talk about, it's what we believe something that's slightly overlooked in the social media noise at the moment. It's the structural and organizational crisis that AI search is generating. So it's not going to be so much about the what, it's more going to be about the how to. And I know, of course, there's this elephant in the room, right? We see a decreasing clicks, especially in the UK, but that's not the real problem that we're going to address. The real underlying issue is that organization, SEO teams, they're just still moving in slow motion. So that's what we'll focus on today, how to fix that structural gap and start moving at the new speed of search. So here's the plan for the next 30 odd minutes. We'll be breaking down into 4 parts. So first, we'll talk about the cost of being slow in the GEO era. Then we'll talk about the current SEO cycle and kind of the reality check here. Why SEO fixes that takes more than 6 weeks to launch basically are a killer for your organic growth in this changing environment.
Yeah, and then we're going to have a quick look at the SEO skill set and how it's changing in 2026. So we're going to look at how it's moving away from a kind of static approach to doing things to a more agile kind of role. And we'll also discuss Edge SEO, which is really your friend in this changing scenario. So we'll show you how Edge SEO can act as a companion and help you hit 100% of your roadmap without getting stuck in a backlog.
Right, so that's the menu for today. Before we get into gears, I just realized, Ben, we didn't even introduce ourselves. So please, off you go.
So I'm a customer success engineer here at Fasterize. I've been here for nearly 3 years now. So I'm accompanying our clients on a daily basis with their SEO challenges and finding solutions that we can implement using our SEO tool, Edge SEO. So yeah, I'm here for the more technical aspect, and I'm going to be describing the impact of these changes on the technical side of things, technical SEO and developers.
And I'm Ben. So unlike you, Ben, I actually recently joined Fasterize. I'm handling international client expansion pretty much. So my background very much in tech, covering many industries. You know, I've done e-commerce, travel, hospitality, media, entertainment, you name it. And what I do most of my days is basically chatting to folks like you, whether it's agency side, SEO team, client side, from various industries. I think today we've got a couple of people from insurance, e-commerce, we've got a bit of travel as well. So, and the idea is talking to them about how to avoid getting their great ideas stuck into dev ticket backlog pretty much. So we're both with a company called FastRise, like we mentioned. We're a tech solution provider for in the SEO and web performance space. So let's jump right into our topic. So I don't think it's going to be a big surprise for anyone here when I say the search ecosystem has been changing a lot. I mean, it's been accelerating in a pace that's pretty mind-blowing. And if we go back into the near past, like 2024, we've obviously seen, massive shifts. We've seen the rise of SearchGPT back in 2024. Now we've got AI overviews in 2025, AI mode as well. And to some extent, I think it's still rather small in terms of traffic volumes, right? We hear things from being 2 to 5% in the UK, for example, generating from LLMs, but it's growing exponentially. So it's not a future conversation. It's a situation that's happening now. And now we're in 2026. We're actually seeing even more new things like, shopping features being baked into LLMs, into ChatGPT, and even more agentic workflows now with the UCP, for example, Universal Commerce Protocol. I'm sure you've heard of it, if not on the news in your LinkedIn feed.
Yeah, so we've got some stats on the slide here from Pew Research, and they're really a bit of a gut punch because they show that only 8% of people are actually clicking on traditional links where there's an AI summary displayed at the top. So that's roughly half the traffic that we're used to seeing. And the other thing that really stands out here is that 26% of users are just leaving. So they're getting their answer from the AI overview and then they're done there. Meanwhile, on the technical side of things, these aren't really just minor UI changes that we're talking about here. It's more of a fundamental shift in the underlying ecosystem. So we're moving towards things like the UCP that Ben just mentioned, or alternatives like Microsoft's Copilot Merchant Program that was released last year. And what's going to happen here is that search and transaction are going to be taking place in the same place. So it's not just a question of improving your ranking anymore. It's really about becoming a source of authority that is feeding these AI models in real time. If your site isn't feeding into that ecosystem, you're going to just be invisible to these new modes of search.
Yeah, and it's very true. I mean, that's a pretty good segue, actually, Ben, to our part one, the cost of moving slowly in this GEO era. And the cost we're going to be talking about today is what we would call, the SEO latency cost. Basically, to make this super simple, it's the time between you spotting an SEO or GEO fix to actually that fix going live on your website. And I'm sure many of you got many examples of a high priority SEO ticket that's been sitting in a Jira backlog for weeks. I don't want to say month, but I'm sure there's month as well. So that's really the gap we're going to be talking about here.
Yeah, and over on the tech side of business, that gap is where the real damage is occurring now, because with the advent of GEO, search engines are really adapting their algorithms constantly and changing in real time. So if your site takes weeks to respond to each one of these shifts, you're not just being left behind, you're actually invisible to these models that are making split-second choices. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down exactly how we measure that lost value and why a kind of old school roadmap that's going to last several months here is now officially a liability.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we need to look at what's happening here. I think there's a big misconception sometimes that, the problem is real-time SEO. And I just want to reassure everyone, we're not trying to say that we expect you to check your rankings every 5 minutes. That's not what we're talking about. The real issue is obviously not that search is suddenly live. It's always been live. The real shift we're seeing is actually around the velocity of change. It's real-time change. Sometime you might have noticed, you're going on an AI overview, and from a Tuesday morning, it completely changed the answer on its sources, its mention, even the answer in the middle of, the next Wednesday. And that's the velocity of AI models we're talking about. And so same, you go on social media, you've got the next big GEO thing one day, the next day, it's all assumption.
Yeah, on the surface, it kind of makes me think a bit of Google's "I'm feeling lucky" button, but it's really not that simple. Behind the scenes, there's a whole feedback loop that's been broken here between the search algorithms that are applied and the SERP. And with this change, there's just not going to be these relatively long cycles anymore where we could spot a change, plan a fix, and then eventually deploy it. With this new ecosystem that's shifting almost by the hour, you really have to stay ahead. And if your internal process is taking, 6 weeks to change a meta tag or update a block of schema, you're not just slow, you're just completely out of the game before you've even started.
Yeah, and those are real examples, by the way. I mean, Eben and I, we talk to agencies and clients alike all the time, and the 6 weeks window is actually very real.
Yeah.
So if that velocity is the problem, then GEO has kind of basically raised the tax on being slow, right? So like I said, when we're talking to clients or agencies, they all tell us that, past stories of being in that meeting where someone says, okay, that will have to go within the next sprint. We just don't have any spot anymore. And in the old world, it kind of made sense, and perhaps that costed you a few clicks. Wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, but today that delay is going to have a massive impact with these new AI models deciding who is an authoritative source in real time. If you miss that window, you can't just show up a month later and expect to recover that lost ground. Once the model has moved on, the opportunity's gone and lost forever. So on the tech side, again, I think it's helpful to think of it as a case of, whilst GEO didn't invent the need for speed, it's really turned up the heat by a factor of like 10 here. So being slow used to be a bit of an internal workflow kind of problem, but now it's actually turned into a serious competitive risk. So if your competitor is able to update their content or their schema in an hour whilst you're still waiting 3 weeks to get that deployment through, those search engines and LLMs out there, they're going to have already gravitated towards the competitors because they're the ones that are able to provide that freshest content and response there.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, the competitive risk, and you probably see that every day. You see a competitor, you're trying many prompts on LLMs, and you see a competitor pop up in an AI overview or LLM response, and you're just wondering, we have better content, allegedly better authority than them. Why aren't we there? And why are they? And usually it's not because it's not because they're better. It's because they beat you at execution.
They just got there first.
Yeah. But like I mentioned before, we've got to talk about numbers a little bit. So the worst thing is when you kind of see traffic is dipping, you have the fix, you know exactly what you want to do, or you've got an idea of a fix, but you just once again waiting on the dev to actually deploy it. That's right there is what we call the SEO latency cost. And it's pretty simple math. It's never going to be perfect. We know how SEO works. It depends, but you take your opportunity value. So basically think about that incremental traffic or what those ranking would be worth to you per week, and you multiply by how many weeks you've been stuck in the waiting room on the dev side. For example, let's say a fix, would bring you £5,000 per week. If it sits in the backlog for 2 months, you're talking about a £40,000 mistake. So that's a good way as well to talk to the business about why it's so important to change your workflows.
Yeah, and this is actually almost the industry norm here. So in just a moment, we're going to look at some research that shows that actually 38% of technical fixes are taking over 6 weeks to deploy. And as we said earlier, in 2026, where search is shifting in hours, 6 weeks is just a lifetime. And it's going to allow your traffic to erode whilst you're getting those fixes out there. So on top of the financial cost, slow execution is really killing your ability to test and learn. Because if you're waiting for months to see if that change has worked, you're going to be making decisions based on old news. And we have to really stop that kind of roadmap mentality and switch over to a mode of working where we're in a feedback loop, a continual improvement kind of mindset.
Yeah, and exactly that, Ben. And you're talking about roadmap. Look, I like a good roadmap as everybody else. But really, does anyone actually believe that in 12 months' time, with a 6 to 12 month roadmap, you're still going to be relevant by December, especially in this AI search? I mean, the assumptions, they age so quickly, like we mentioned before. If you're trying to predict what an AI model will do in 6 months, even 2 months, 3 months, I think it's a losing game. So the long-term plans that we used to be doing, with SEO, we believe they're kind of wishful thinking at best now.
That's right. And you can actually fall into the trap of not just bad planning, but planning too far ahead, where you get locked into these slow, heavy execution cycles, and you're going to end up on this path that is going to actually end at a dead end by the time you actually get there in terms of deployments. So again, that's why we really humbly believe here that we need to move from a planner role here into more of an adapter mindset.
Yeah, so moving slow, and we talk about moving slow now, and it's not just about, it's about cost, obviously. It's super annoying as well, but it's super high stakes. I mean, it really leads to what we would call blind decisions. So you're basically trying to drive forward your business, just looking only in the rearview mirror. So you're using assumptions from 3 months ago to solve today's search shift. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. So from a development perspective as well, that kind of approach can lead to these very heavy development deployments where SEO tickets are getting packaged together into these big, scary bundles. And that really makes it almost impossible to measure the impact of each change and be able to pivot, revert if necessary, and so on and so forth. So that ends up as being what we could call late learning. By the time you see a change, or by the time you see an impact of a particular change, the window's already slammed shut there. So you get stuck watching your competitors pivot while still waiting for a signal on a change that you made last quarter. So it's really time to stop treating SEO like a construction project and instead start thinking about it a bit more like a live broadcast.
I mean, to be fair, Ben, it's probably something you would see everywhere, especially the heavy deployments. I mean, it's not just SEO, is how do you move away from those big, scary tech SEO deployment in that case, but it could be anything from product feature as well. Yeah. All right, so conscious of time as well, moving into part 2, we've talked about the velocity crisis, that how GEO, AEO, AI search, however you want to call it, has made it tenfold. So now let's look at what's actually happening on the ground right now.
Yeah, so we're going to have a look in a bit more detail at that gap between having a great idea and actually seeing it go live on the site. And let's have a moment to think about where that model is usually breaking down for most teams.
Yeah, so that's the reality check that we mentioned, and I think, Ben, you touched upon it a couple of minutes ago, but yeah, look at these charts from SEO FOMO. So I'm sure it kind of is familiar for many of you. So basically what we see here is that 38% of technical SEO fixes take more than 6 weeks to actually go live. Yeah. So honestly, you're not alone if you ever felt like your best ideas are just dying in the dev ticket backlog. And actually, that's a moment where I just want you to check the room. I think we have a poll ready for you. So just tell us, where do you think your team currently stands on that topic? Please let us know, answer, and I leave it to Ben to keep going on the data.
Yeah, it will be really interesting to see where our audience stands on this, because Again, according to this research from SEO FOMO, it's really wild, actually. It's kind of shocking. Only 17% of teams are actually getting things done in under 2 weeks. So in a world where search is moving as fast as it is, taking several weeks to change, a tag or update schema is really a lifetime, and you're going to be behind the curve before that code even goes live. And just check out what SEO FOMO had to say about the roadmap completion. Only 19% of SEO consultants are getting through more than 80% of their planned work. So that's a huge discrepancy there. It means most of us are barely hitting the halfway mark.
So we got 7 votes here. We're more towards the middle ground. It's good. Someone is actually taking more than 6 weeks, which is interesting, but nobody less than 2 weeks. Do we get more votes as well? No, more than 6 weeks. Who is that? Oh yeah, we've got some good SEO teams, it seems, as well. So anyway, if you still want to vote, you can, but basically it seems like we're seeing more or less the 2 to 6 weeks window being predominant. Let's move on. So that's kind of what I would call your check engine light for modern SEO. There is absolutely no way we all can win in this high-speed ecosystem that we just described before if you're tied to slow fixed execution cycles. I think we've been repeating that from the start of the webinar, but that's the reality.
Yeah, it's a real total mismatch there. We're trying to apply these rigid old school approaches to an environment that's just shifting in real time.
So yeah, error message, obviously, I forgot there was an animation there, sorry. And let's reframe the debate here. We're not suggesting that, you should be chasing every tiny algorithm change, or you should be chasing every LinkedIn trend. Please don't do that. You're going to burn out, to be honest. It's really not about overreacting. What we're really pushing to shift towards is what we would call continuous reasoning within the teams. So basically, instead of doing those massive high stakes guesses once a quarter, is how can you make small and smart adjustments as you go?
Yeah, and from the technical perspective, it's really about moving away from one and done kind of implementations here. Continual reasoning is going to mean that your SEO is no longer a static project. It's more of a living system that's going to stay in step with those search engine changes. So it's all about having the technical flexibility to really pivot as soon as you start to see a new pattern emerge, rather than waiting for a deployment window. So yeah, again, it's a case of moving from planning to orchestrating and taking the pressure off from these big launches or big production changes, putting the focus back on small, consistent wins.
Yeah, so I think, yeah.
So yeah, we've got this graph here which shows what that process actually looks like as a workflow, and it's not a straight line. It's absolutely a cycle here. So we start in the first phase where we're going to observe signals. So you want to stay curious and try and catch any kind of vibe shift before it transforms into a major traffic drop, or the reverse for that matter. You might be able to pick up on signals, positive signals that you can latch onto. So you're going to try and have to identify those emerging patterns as they happen, and then we can move on to the next phase, which is validating assumptions. We could also call this a test and learn phase. So we're going to take any hypotheses we may have again about those trends, and we're going to run them against real world data on the site and see if we can measure to confirm that they actually work. So it's about moving beyond an approach where we think something might help to actually having firm data there, being able to say confidently, I know this will have the impact that we're looking for.
Yeah, and that kind of leads you to adjusting direction. So because you're testing small and fast, you can really pivot promptly. If a strategy is not working today, you change it before you've committed those massive resources, and you've got this month of dev time behind you. It's kind of the best way to describe it, of this whole loop, is your insurance policy against those blind decisions we were discussing before. So just keeps your SEO strategy relevant and agile, making sure you're always reacting to up-to-date info instead of, outdated roadmaps that you've been building, over the last quarter or 6 months.
Yeah.
So now if you're wondering what the must-have skills are for SEO teams in 2026, that's pretty much it. We've spent years focusing on things like, keyword search, link building, but the new skill we see fundamentally for us is SEO agility. And I know agility, it really sounds like these buzzwords, management buzzwords, but actually we think in 2026, agility is as hard a skill as technical SEO or data analysis. It's that ability to actually move the needle when the environment is shifting as quickly as it is right now.
Yeah, it's about not just knowing what the fix is, but actually having the means to deploy, test, and pivot that fix and refine it further if necessary in real time. So it's going to be about going from being the person who can say, we're reacting to change, to actually instead of saying, we're planning a fix for the next quarter.
So what does it look like on a day-to-day basis? So first is kind of agile navigation. And what we've seen is the roadmap should never be carved into stone, right? It needs to be that kind of, maybe it's a bad comparison, but sort of a GPS that kind of reroutes the adjustments and reroutes everything the second search traffic is shifting. So it's kind of your ways of SEO, if you like. And then you've got continuous feedback loops. So you're ditching the sort of launch and pray for a test, learn, deploy kind of cycle. It's obviously less stressful for everyone because you're making those constant small adjustments instead of kind of betting the entire house on this one big release. And I know it's familiar for you, Eben, because you're working with the product and dev team here at Fasterise, so always trying to be as agile as possible as well.
Without wanting to put too fine a point on it, and I know that we're going to go on to have a much closer look at Edge SEO itself next, but from the technical side of things, it's about going from having a ticket-based system to actually opening up a kind of laboratory that's going to allow for experimentation, and moving from pushing tickets through a kind of process here, or a Kanban, into actually orchestrating real-time adaptation.
All right, so you kind of alluded to it, Eben, but let's go into the concrete now. We spend the last few minutes, and actually last 20 minutes, to talk about the velocity crisis brought by AI search. We've talked about why you need to be more agile. And at that point, you're kind of thinking maybe, okay, I get the why, it makes sense, but how do I actually move that fast without getting my dev team, to hate me pretty much? And that's the part where we show you the kind of fast track easy button for execution and organization. So off you go, Eben.
Yeah, this is really where all of the magic happens from a technical standpoint. So we're going to have a look at how you can move your SEO logic to the edge, or put it into the cloud, essentially. So it's about moving away from working on pages from your main server and actually giving you the freedom to test and deploy without waiting for those massive release cycles that we keep complaining about. Edge SEO is really a technical fast track that's going to allow you to turn those multiple month-long roadmaps into, a deployment that same day. So let's dive into that.
Yeah, and before we do, Ben, I've just put another poll on the screen, kind of a pulse check for everyone on the call. You can respond on the poll on whether you're actually familiar with the concept of Edge SEO. And I guess, let's see, maybe a good chunk of you are leaning towards the no. I don't know. Let's see what the answers are.
Yeah, and if you are in the yes group, you're probably curious about how it actually changes the game in terms of specific rankings and the tech stack involved. So we're going to go on to bridging that gap between the cool tech side of things and the actual SEO impact. So
I don't know if the pool is working. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that kind of tool, but tell me in the chat if you're having difficulty with the yes and no.
And whether or not this is a brand new concept to you, or whether you've heard the term before. We're going to break it down a bit more next.
It's kind of a mixed room. We've got 60% that are not familiar, 40% are familiar, missing a couple of votes, but we'll move on to the next slide. Oops.
So for those of you who are like, what exactly is Edge SEO? We're going to break it down for you simply. So at its core, it's just a concept that really changes fundamentally how we put SEO into practice. It's a solution that's built to be web performance friendly, so you're not trading site speed for your rankings. It's a concept that was originally put on the map by Dan Taylor. We've got a photo of him here, back in 2018. And it's all based around the idea, or it was originally based around the idea of using a CDN and the principle of workers, which are like tiny little snippets of code that can rewrite parts of your pages on the fly. So that gives us a really unique opportunity to modify your HTML right on the edge, as we say. So that's basically as the page is being served to the end user. And it allows you to deploy SEO adjustments without needing to touch what's on the server at all. It's basically a kind of like get out of jail free card for you.
I'm a bit jealous, to be honest. I wish people were using my picture on other webinar. Don't think it's happening.
I know, right? Maybe in 10 years or something like that.
Yeah, let's see. So with Edge SEO, really what Ben just described, we're looking at 100% execution with basically no limits on what you can tweak. No CMS limit, no dev time limits. It's about getting that performance edge without the usual structural headache that we discussed about.
Yeah, it's a really smooth loop. So the first stage is the browser sends a request for a page, and that's going to be intercepted by the Edge SEO platform, which is kind of acting a bit like a proxy here. So we're going to pull the response from the server, apply those SEO rules on the fly, and then send it back to the end user. And you don't need to worry about this because whilst I am talking about users, there's no issue around cloaking here because actually whether you're a real user or a bot, you're going to get exactly the same content there. Yeah,
so yes, that's things like maybe you couldn't touch upon robots.txt, doing all redirection yourself, that's things you'd be able to do. So you're really taking the steering wheel back, and instead of waiting for that 2 month or 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever cycle it is to fix a basic error, you're doing it real time when the search engines, like we say, are still looking, when the LLMs are still looking. So take a deep breath on this one. So look at the left side of this slide. So that's the standard timeline. It gives me a little bit of anxiety, to be honest, but starts with a Jira ticket, then moves to specs, then the dreaded priority meeting, because obviously you're not going to be able to do everything on your roadmap. And by the time you get through dev, QA, and finally deploy, sometimes 2 months have passed. So it's expensive, it's slow. Honestly, it's exhausting. I feel exhausted just reading through that, to be honest.
Yeah, and as a tech guy, I can tell you that devs are not really fond of this cycle either because they're getting bogged down in tickets that could have been handled a lot more elegantly. So if we now look at the graph on the right hand, we've got the Edge SEO equivalent, so what the timeline would look like if we were using Edge SEO to achieve this. So you're basically taking out those middle 5 steps there. You're just going to set up your SEO rules, you hit deploy, and then it's time to monitor the results and refine from there. So you're taking that 2-month nightmare and turning it into a kind of much more efficient process that's going to take place over the course of a day or two, really.
Yeah, which is kind of a total game changer in terms of ROI. You're not anymore. We talked about the planners, the orchestrators. You're not anymore as well the dev ticket requester. That kind of branding you've been put on, and you become the traffic generator again. All right, so you've seen all that. Obviously, it's going fast, but that's where things are actually getting pretty wild. We didn't talk so much about it so far, only in the introduction, but we're also entering the era of agentic SEO, which basically takes all that speed and sort of bring it tenfold and puts it on autopilot. So the question is, are robots going to run my site now? Not exactly, but we're definitely looking at systems now where you can process new data, you can process logs, and you can adjust strategies without having to manually step in for every single tweak.
That's right. It's really about slashing the reaction time there. So these agentic systems are really shortening the loop between insight and action in such a dramatic way that traditional human-led cycles are just going to start to look like they're standing still. But, and this is a really big but on the tech side, control over the execution here is absolutely critical, because without robust guardrails in place, that speed can turn into a massive liability as well.
Yeah, it's always that idea of human in the loop, really. I think we need to be quite careful that we're not letting it, run the show to itself. All right, so we talk about the control room right now with agentic SEO. That's the Fast-Rise Edge SEO console on the left-hand side. And the big win here is being able to deliver immediate value pretty much. So if you're an agency, instead of finishing an audit and telling your client, okay, see you in 3 months, when the fixes are finally go live, you're actually deploying recommendations, right from the audit presentation. So it's about becoming that driving force again, not just, the owner of a nice roadmap that never ends. You can actually show them results faster than they've seen anywhere else.
And if you're into technical SEO, look at some of the specific bricks that we've built into our solution here. We've got things like a sitemap cleaner or bulk redirections. But we can also go as far as injecting entirely new content into the pages, or creating FAQ schemas based on responses that we're getting through an API, for example. So it's really not just about the basics. You can really adapt to those AI overviews and LLMs in real time, testing an idea, iterating, and then moving forward without ever having to make any changes on the back end.
Yeah, we're almost done with the presentation, and Eben will mention a couple of very specific use cases at the end in a couple of minutes. But before that, and wrap up the how-to part, it's really about getting you on this SEO fast track, sort of build to maturity. And instead of that 19% roadmap completion that we mentioned earlier with the SEO FOMO, we're talking about getting 100% of your roadmap deployed in a matter of weeks. So really about grabbing those traffic opportunities in hours and not in weeks or months.
Yeah, so that's where test and learn really becomes a reality, allowing you to test that hypothesis, see the impact there, and then scale those optimizations across all of the pages, or even across many sites if there are multiple sites in your organization. And you can do all of that without requiring any effort from the dev side of things.
All right, so I think it's time to look at concrete GEO use cases or SEO, Edge SEO use cases.
Yeah, so this isn't just high-level overview here. This is actually what we're doing with some of our clients today, with e-commerce performance and the power of working on the edge. So we're talking about things like adding really targeted schema.org markup to product pages, for argument's sake, that are going to give search engines much better context and enrich product search results. We've seen a lot of success, as I mentioned earlier, by using LLMs to generate FAQs on the fly based on the content that's already there on the page. And that can then feed into these AI search overviews and increase your authority there. So it's all basically about making your site as digestible as possible for these new AI models. So we're also doing other stuff which really tackles what used to be massive headaches. So we can render third-party blocks that are often loaded via JS. We can actually kind of shift those so that they're almost server-side now. And that means that we can be sure that the crawlers aren't missing anything. So I'll give you a classic example, which is product reviews. They're often hosted on a third-party service, and they're then loaded into the page in JS. But that means that more often than not, they're not being picked up on by the search engines and the LLMs. And by using our platform to render those on the edge, that means that they're not going to be missed out anymore, and they're going to have an impact on your reputation and authority. And we can also, as I said, go as far as connecting APIs into this platform. And that can mean that all sorts of content is generated on the fly based on a prompt that you can define. And then that's baked into the response that's served to your users or the crawlers.
Yeah, it's like, to put it in a nutshell, and we talk about that with many clients at the moment. It's about being practical, fast, and that's how you stay ahead of the curve. So we're at the finish line now. If there's one thing I hope you've taken away from everything we said, it's that right now in 2026, and I'd love for it to be the better IDs that win, but it's just not the case. It's the fastest teams that will win. We've all spent too long treating SEO, like the slow-moving construction project, like Eben was mentioning before. And it's really time to start treating it internally like the real-time conversation it really is within organization.
Yeah, and at the same time, from a technical standpoint, we want to move from making the kind of how thing a big deal so that you can just focus on the what is it that you're trying to push out there. And that way you can be unchained and sort of released from this Jira backlog and put back in the driver's seat, where your expertise as an SEO consultant is actually bringing about an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you want to see exactly how this would work, it's very easy for us to show you that on your own website within your setup. So, you've got a QR code in there. I'll leave it for a couple of minutes if you want to flash it. That will allow us to grab a coffee and chat and see how we can show you different use cases on your website. So we're really here to help you turn that roadmap mindset into actual results and fast results. So I've seen questions around whether we've actually measured the impact of Edge SEO for our clients. Yes, we have. So we're fortunate enough to work with, especially in e-commerce and insurance, quite a lot of clients. And so far, what they've been seeing is a major impact on their non-branded organic traffic. So I think about a general clothing retail or a kids retailer in France called Verbaudet, where the fact of using Edge SEO has actually helped them complete those roadmaps so fast that they managed to increase by, I think it was around 20%, their non-branded organic traffic. We also see other clients in the luxury retail field actually boosting the number of keywords they're ranking within the top 3 by about 30%. So moving quite a lot of keywords from the long tail end towards the top 3. So I don't know. So we don't have, we're 45 minutes, which is the end of a webinar. I'm sure if you have any questions, there will be a replay, so it's going to be available. Yeah. Feel free to get in touch. It was hopefully entertaining as well as informative for you guys.
Yeah, look forward to having those interesting conversations around Edge SEO.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Have a good lunch, hopefully, and we'll speak soon.
Right.